Welcome to the show, it's time to unwind. With Dave B and Dave D, the best brews you'll find. Craft beer talk, it's a passion we share. From hops to malts, we're taking you there. This is Daftaboutcraft, where the good times flow. Sit back and relax, let the flavors glow. Brews, news, and views, we've got it all right. Cheers to craft beer, let's raise it tonight.
And welcome to episode 71 of Daftaboutcraft with me, Dave D.
And me, Dave B.
Our interview this time, we're going all the way to Scotland for it, Dave.
Yeah, so this one, it just goes to show actually what the power of a podcast can do. It was quite a rewarding interview because a few episodes ago, one of our bonuses, Dave stepped in with the branding for breweries discussion, which he did on his own. And out of nowhere, we had a message on Instagram from Soulworth Brewing up in Dumfries and Galloway. And Scott said that he'd listened to the podcast, completely agreed with Dave, which, you know, someone's got to. Wanted to come on and have a chat, so we duly did. Soulworth would be a very traditional brewery and very openly traditional, although that is perhaps the times they are changing, as we'll find out in the chat. But it does feature one of the nicest beers that we've probably had in a long time. So it was a really good chat, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think it's fair to say that we were blown away by the beers, especially the porter that we had, as you'll find out, really, really excellent. And, you know, if you've never tried their beers, you've got to get hold of them. But you'll hear all about that later on. And we've also got Pints of View, where we're putting vocation in the spotlight and trying to find some beers from smaller breweries that are equal or better than them. That's probably the nicest way to say it, I think, Dave.
Well, it can't be any worse than last episode.
That is true. Club Tropica from Tiny Rebel did not go down well. Now, we've also got Tried and Tested, our favourite beer since we last spoke to you, but we'll kick off, as we always do, with Brew to Me. Dave, where in the country, or where in the world, you could be going anywhere, I don't know, where are you taking us this time?
I am in Britain, and I am in Morecambe. And I am having a beer from a brewery I know absolutely nothing about. And unfortunately, as we'll get to, we still know nothing about. And that is Accidental Brewery, who are, as I say, based up in Morecambe. And I just happened to notice I was placing an order online and I saw a couple of beers from them and I thought, I've definitely not had any of their stuff. So I'm going to try it. I've got 2 cans. They're both on the stronger side. One was 7%. This one's slightly lighter. It's Dead Presidents, which is a 6.5% New England IPA.
You don't usually start off the episode with anything that high. That's good.
Yeah, I know. I didn't necessarily want to, but these are the beers that were available, so these are the beers that I have. A quick little look on Accidental's website reveals that they do have a micropub. So it started out in a kitchen in 2015, so they've actually been going nearly 10 years now. And they moved into the brewery in 2018. And then in 2020, like everyone else, COVID hit them, but they sort of grew from that, and then they set up a beer garden at the back of where they were in 2020, then set up their new brewery, which they reopened in October 2021. But that's all the story I can piece together from their website, because unfortunately, I've reached out to Accidental on social media and on email and haven't been able to hear back from them.
Well, I'll tell you what, there's going to be no escaping, because they have signed up for Craft Brew Festival Lancaster later this year. So I will get them in a corner and get the lowdown from them.
Obviously, before then, if Accidental happen to be listening to this, or you know someone who is part of Accidental and you want to tell them about it, please do, because we'd love to hear from them. They can easily send in a little voice note saying who they are, where they are, etc., and tell us a bit more about their story. We'd love to hear it. We just haven't been able to on this occasion.
It's one of the slight downsides of contacting breweries when we want them to feature on this. If they haven't heard the podcast or they don't know about us, it's just some bods getting in touch unsolicited on social media, and sometimes breweries don't respond to that.
They don't, although I did make it clear that I already had the beers, so I wasn't trying to freeload, I just wanted a voice note. Speaking of the beers, this is very old school fruity soft on the nose, and it has got Citra and Nectaron are the two hops working here, so you can sort of guess what I'm going to be getting here.
We hate the word, but I would imagine a little bit of sort of tropical dankness.
There's not really any dankness. It's very tropical. It's really quite tropical. It's pretty full. It's not creamy full, it's just full. It disguises the 6.5% quite well, and it's a little bit sweet, but not sickly sweet. It's a good beer. It's going to go down very easily, which is probably a bit of a worry.
Rest of the podcast is going to be great then if you're necking 7% beer straight off.
Well, 6.5, but this is very good. It's a very nice introduction. They do say on their website that they brew all sorts from stouts to saisons. I think the other beer I have is another hazy beer as an introduction to them as a brewery. That's very impressive. And I think I saw something that this beer was part of a series, and I think it was the third beer in the series, but I'm not 100% about that. But yeah, I'm very, very, very happy with that.
I'm going to have to seek out some of their beers because, like you, I don't think I've actually had any of them either. Maybe they just don't make it to our neck of the woods. Did you get this online, did you?
It was online and it came from York. So Lancaster to York's not too bad, but...
Yeah, okay, that explains that then, doesn't it? It sounds like you're very impressed with what you've got there. That's nice. Good way to start. Have you been to Morecambe?
I don't think I have, I've been to Blackpool.
The reason I ask is because Morecambe is by the sea and I'm going to the seaside as well. We seem to spend a lot of time at the seaside on this feature. Have you noticed? Now, I have got 6 beers from a brewery and I'm tempted to let you pick which one I have.
Okay.
Would you like to play that game?
Absolutely. What are we playing it on? Is it the name of the beer or the style of the beer?
Well, I was going to show you each of the cans and let you pick from maybe your favourite can. So the brewery here in question is Fathead Brewery, and I love that name. What a great name, Fathead, from Weston-super-Mare. And they sent me 6 beers, which I'm very grateful for, and I will show you them right here. So that one is called Sabotage, and that is a New England IPA. Isn't the artwork cool? It's one of the reasons I wanted to show you.
Well, I love the song, and I love the video that accompanies Beastie Boys' Sabotage, which is where they've taken their influence from.
Right, okay, this is...
A Zack of the Clones, nice, yep, clever.
Yep. That's 5% pale. And what have we got here? We've got a sour here. That is a toffee apple sour. I keep on coming. This isn't much good for listeners because they can't see this wonderful artwork, but never mind, you can.
Milk stout, okay.
Yep, so that's a Tonka and chocolate milk stout. Pull the lever tonk. And I've got 2 more. Just reach over here. It's a lovely way to showcase their beers, isn't it? 6 beautiful cans like these to send them.
Okie dokie, yeah. There's some Fallout artwork going on here, which is something I'm a big fan of that game series, so I like this a lot.
I thought it might appeal. And the last one here is called Captain Fathead. Love that.
Now, I'm going to say, just because I'm really interested, because I don't think I've necessarily seen the flavours done, a toffee apple sour.
I knew you wouldn't make it easy for me with a nice New England IPA.
Well, I thought, you do love a sour.
Do you know what? I said this the other day to my wife, that I find in myself enjoying the more wild fermented beers on the sour side, but your lambics, all this sort of stuff just recently. So, and I've not had so many beers like this. So this would be quite a good test, actually.
You would like very much my brew to me for next month, I think.
I think I may have seen a picture of it, and I'm actually quite jealous of it, yeah. But if you get robbed in the next 3 weeks and you find it's gone from your garage, you'll know who's got it.
Just one missing.
So this is a 6.6% toffee apple sour.
Apologies, I didn't realise it was as potent as that.
Right, let's read what it says on the back of the can here. Our toffee apple sour is a unique blend of caramel malts, smooth toffee notes and fresh apple juice, sourced from Richie's Cider Farm. This tangy and slightly sweet sour beer balances the crispness of apples with a warm toffee finish, creating a refreshingly smooth sip that's perfect for any season. Well, I'll tell you what, they've done a great job with those words. It sounds great, doesn't it?
It does. I'm really interested to see how they're going to balance the 2 flavours. Because I think the you of 3 or 4 years ago would have wanted it to be more toffee. The you now wants it to be more tart apple.
The nose is very much more toffee than apple.
Uh-huh.
But interestingly, to taste, it's more apple than toffee, with the apple at the front and a little bit of subtle toffiness at the back. That's really nice. That's nice, actually. That's really good.
When you take lambic out, everything is a modern sour. But is it a modern sour?
Yeah. I mean, it says on the can it's a modern sour, and I think it tastes like it's not as modern as in the same way that the ridiculous way that Vault City have gone now. I used to love their beers, as regular listeners will know, and I'm a bit...
I'm not getting the cream egg one for Easter.
Nah, I'm all right, thanks. Yeah, it's just a bit silly now, isn't it? This isn't silly. It might sound a bit silly, but the beer itself is actually quite grown up, I would say.
Okay.
If it was the other way round and that toffee, apple, caramel was to the fore, I'd say it was more Vault City, but it's not. It's the other way round, which I like.
Let me put it to you then a different way. If that beer wasn't in the sort of cartoon artwork can and was in a 330 bottle, like a duration fermented thing, or other breweries that are doing their fermented stuff, and you got that and it was described as toffee apple, would you be like, oh yeah, that is quite really well done?
That's a very good point. I mean, I do think it is very well done, but I'd probably take it even more seriously if it was in a 330ml bottle. I've got a thing about sour beers in bottles. You see, that's I find more and more. That's what I love. It's quite a grown-up sour, that is, I would say. So while it's modern, it's also very well done.
I think if they've nailed a beer like that, that only bodes well for sort of, not that beer is easy to brew, but, pails are what people can turn their hand to with degree of ease. So fingers crossed the pails are just as good.
It's got a very dry finish. It keeps you going back for the next bit.
Well, that's good, because I wondered if that was going to, where the toffee would start to get a bit stuck in the back type thing.
No, I mean, it doesn't taste like it's had a load of adjuncts thrown into it. I think that toffee is coming from the malt, and they've done a very good job with it, actually, because it's really coming through on the nose, and just subtly, just how I want it to taste. Yeah, that's impressive. I'm looking forward to the others. Can we press pause so I can go and drink the other 5 cans? Well, I've been very positive about that beer. Very, very good. Let's hear to what the good folk down at Fathead, I love that name, down at Fathead have got to say about what they do down there in Weston-super-Mare.
Hi guys, Sophie here from Fathead Brewery. Fathead is known for its innovative beers and flavours. We opened our doors in September 2023 and we've since gained a reputation for quality and creativity in brewing. We've quickly made a name for ourselves in the competitive craft beer landscape, participating in various competitions and food and drink festivals. One of our notable achievements are winning several Taste of the West awards, which celebrate the best food and drink producers in the southwest of England. These accolades highlight our commitment to quality and the use of local ingredients. The brewery focuses on producing a range of beer styles, from German-style lagers to imperial stouts, all crafted with passion for flavour and a dedication to the craft of brewing. We aim for approachable yet distinctive beers to cater to both craft beer enthusiasts and casual drinkers alike. We have a small tap room that is opposite the local theatre in Weston-super-Mare, and that's kind of it, really.
This is Daftaboutcraft, the craft beer podcast. Daftaboutcraft, you're tuned into your favourite beer podcast.
Usually, when it comes to interviewing our guests, we do a lot of the legwork and we go find people and have a chat on Instagram or via email, and then lo and behold we get to have a conversation. But actually, through the power of doing a previous episode, we had a brewery come to us and say they'd like to be on the podcast, and of course we were never going to turn them down. So delighted to say that we are joined by Scott Henderson, who is from Solworth Brewery up in, you can say where exactly, but from Scotland. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. So it's in Dumfries and Galloway in a small town called Castle Douglas.
Are you in an area rich with breweries, or are you there on your own? What's the scene up there?
Roundabout where we are, there's, I think, only 2 of us. There's not loads of breweries round about us. I know, obviously, we've been here the longest, but yeah, it's especially in our area, it's kind of not massive in the brewing industry.
The reason I ask is because when you've got a little group of brewers, they often help each other and feed off each other, but if you're on your own, that must be difficult.
Yeah, I mean, we help out any way we can. I know we've worked, the other one's Five Kingdoms, we've worked a bit with them, likes of, we're going to beer festivals, save a little bit on transportation. One of us will take all the casks up, the other one will collect them, stuff like that. So yeah, anything we can do to help out and work together, as you say, because we've got to all got to help each other in this industry at the moment.
Yeah, 100%. There might only be 2 of you in the local area, but that hasn't exactly stopped you getting established, has it? This is the 30th year of the brewery in existence, which is, no mean feat, really. So how's it sort of come about to now you're involved in the brewery?
Going right back to the start, it was my grandparents started it, my gran and granddad. They started it just next to a wee dairy farm down in Southern S. they started it. It was more, well, her family was 3 generations of hop growers in Hereford. So she had a little bit of a link. My granddad, he was a banker, so nothing to do with brewing, but they decided to give it a go. And at the time, that was back in, the first brew was 95. Back then, they were doing maybe a brew every month or every couple of months. My dad and I always kind of joke about it, saying we don't want to be harsh, but it was a hobby, really. So then my dad had come back. He was driving lorries at the time and he didn't really know what to do. I'd just come along. He didn't want to be driving lorries the whole time because he was going to be away a lot. So had a look and spoke to his parents, my grandparents, and decided that he was going to give it a go. They moved the operation into the old steam bakery building in Castle Douglas, which is, I believe the building's about 160 years old just now. So he came back and helped out with that. He went on some brewing courses, learned as much as he could about it, and he was the one doing the brewing at that point because it was still more or less a hobby. He was still driving lorries through the night and then getting up and going and doing the brews during the day, so he was grafting away. But it was really from there, that's when it started to kind of take off a bit, and we established ourselves in the area and further out. And then obviously, I'd come along by that point, and I was basically brought up in the brewery. I went through from when I was born, more or less. Helped out here and there when I could, when I got old enough, which then transitioned into working summers there when I was off school.
You've never been able to escape the brewery then? It's been there your whole life.
Exactly.
Do you still love it or do you hate it at this point?
I actually love it more. I went through a phase of disliking it, just got to that age and I was like, I don't want to go through and wash more casks this week or anything like that. But it was basically, I came to the end of school and again, I was a bit like my dad, don't really know what I want to do. And I found the brewing and distilling course at Heriot Watt and thought that would be perfect. I mean, I've already got a foot in the door at a brewery, so why not give that a go?
And that's a prestigious course as well, that, isn't it? A lot of really top brewers have been on there.
Yeah. It was one I hadn't even realised, basically, as you say, like how prestigious it was. Just kind of fell upon it by accident and I applied for it. I got in, then deferred for a year because, I mean, the plan was to go travelling. But as you said, can't escape the brewery. I ended up working in the brewery for a year. Yeah, I went there, worked there for a year and then off I went to uni, completed my course there. Came out of it and I was still at the point where I was like, I don't know what I want to do, but I want to do something different. So I went and did my master's in business management. I thought that'll open a few doors. While I was there, I did an internship with Heineken in the technology department. So got to see it on a different kind of scale, but also a different viewpoint of brewing. And then I did a few jobs round about Edinburgh where I was living at the time because of university. Obviously, the whole time, whenever I was home, I was helping out with anything I could at the brewery, whether it was working outside bars, whether it was coming and doing brews, bottlings, anything I could do to help. And then 2 years ago, I had a son, so we decided tail end of last year that it was going to be a lot easier with family around us. So
I can see Dave's face and he's thinking exactly the same as me. He's thinking, how old are you?
I was trying to sort of think, the brewery's been going 30 years and obviously it wasn't straight away Scott's dad doing it, so there must be a gap here. So Scott's probably best, he's 30, but he does not look anywhere near 30.
I'm 26.
Oh, you're a very youthful looking 26.
Well, and you've got a real rounded perspective on the whole business as well, by the sounds of it.
Yeah, that was the whole idea. The plan wasn't even to come back this early. It was, my dad had always said it to me. It was like, basically, there was no pressure to have it as a family business. There was no pressure for me to come back. It was only there if I wanted it. He wanted me to go and experience other things first. So in doing that, obviously I had my experience at uni, I had the other jobs here and there, and when I came back in November, moved back to Dumfries, it started off as I was just going to help out and I was going to do bits and pieces until I found something, and then it turned into actually now I think is the time that I want to make that transition and get involved with it properly.
So how many people are involved in the brewery then? Is it just you and your dad or is there other people as well?
There's myself, my dad and my mum. We basically do all the kind of office work or anything, that side of it. We have 2 front of house staff, Mark and Charmaine, because we've got a tap room. And then we've got 1 brewer through the back, which is Wookish. He's Polish, and he's been with us for coming up on 18 years now.
Wow. I've got to say, while we've been talking here, I've been drinking the lager. Massive plaudits to him, because that is superb. I don't know what you think, Dave, but it's really, really good.
It's interesting now. I know that the brewer is European because it has a bit of a European taste to it. It's a bit nutty on the end, and it just reminds me slightly more of a European style lager than what I would associate with sort of an English, a Scottish, a British type one. Would that be fair?
Yeah, I mean, it's still obviously the original recipe and everything like that, but obviously there's tweaks here and there, and obviously with Wickers being there for so long, he's obviously had a big impact on the brewery. So yeah, I think that would be a fair assessment.
I say you've done well to keep hold of him for 18 years. That is a long, long time, isn't it? Wow.
I know, I've known him since I was a little kid, really. Just always been there for me.
So do you drink a lot of beer in your day-to-day life? Are you a big beer person? And whose beer do you drink?
I am a big beer person now. When I was younger, I was not at all. When I first started drinking at university and stuff, I did not like beer. I'd been working in the brewery, so I had to taste it and everything. So I knew what I was tasting for, but I just didn't like it. It was a trip to Canada. We were over there, and I would always have ciders, just the fruity ones, because that's what I liked. And we were sitting in a bar one time, and I got a can of cider, and then my mates had got an IPA, and they'd all sat there and they were like, they tasted it, because they don't normally have IPAs, traditional lager or stuff like that. So they all said to me, they knew I didn't like the beer, but they said, does that taste right? Because they thought it was off. And I was like, right, give me a taste. So I tasted it, and I was like, no, that's actually quite nice. So none of them had the rest of their pints, and I finished their pints for them. And ever since then, I've been a big beer drinker. Whenever I'm over at my dad's or anything, we like to just go into a shop and just get a selection of loads of different types of beers and just try them all out.
So are your grandparents still around?
So my granddad, he's still around. My gran passed away when I was young, but she was big involved with it. And then my granddad, I mean, he's still holding on to it. He comes through whenever he can, although it's not as often. I remember when I was younger, his thing was always the brewery tours or the garden. That was his things. You could not touch them. He became quite famous for the tours. But yeah, now he no longer does either of those. He'll just come through and visit whenever he can.
I just wondered what he made of you now being part of the business and the third generation thing. How does he view all that? Must be thrilled.
Oh yeah, he absolutely loves it. Anytime he comes through, and even before I'd got fully involved with it, it would be like a surprise look that I was there. Obviously, I'm not telling him every time I'm home, but no, he loves walking in, seeing me there, and basically, as you say, having that third generation and just being able to make it a proper family business.
I suppose without trying to hammer the sort of third generation family thing to death, from where it started 30 years ago, the beer scene has changed hugely. You sent us both selection 4 beers to try. Probably won't get through all of them tonight, but we'll have another one in a bit. It would be fair to say that the beers are traditional in style at the moment. And I just wondered, now if you're involved in the brewery as a 20-something and can see what beer, craft beer, etc. and everything is doing, is there sort of any suggestion of you wanting to add in some more contemporary stuff, or does what you do in Castle Douglas works for the audience and it just probably wouldn't work to try and bring it in where you are?
Yeah, I think since I've come back, it's definitely something I've been looking at. I mean, I've already come up with suggestions for a few different ones. I mean, since the brewery started, there's not been many that we've brought in. It's have our core range, and that's really been it. There's seasonal ones that we do, like we do rain beer for Christmas. We currently have Woozy Wabbit for Easter. So we do different ones. We've got the Grace. We brought that in. It was a while ago now, but that was to celebrate the Selkirk Grace when there was 100 years of Abbey Burns, and that became popular as we kept it on. So we've done that with a few of them. But yeah, since I've come back, I've already been in my dad's ear with a couple of ideas saying that we could do this, we could do that. But I am also conscious of the fact that we are a traditional brewery. We still have those traditional values. So I'm kind of trying to find that balance between bringing in new ones, but not almost rocking the boat too much and trying to stick to what we've been good at.
I can just imagine you suggesting some Vault City style silly sours and being told we won't be doing that.
Yeah, not happening. But again, those ones are the ones that my dad and I like to try. We love trying different ones like that.
I think that makes sense though, because it's all very well breweries launch at the moment, and if they're in a city, for example, they know they can probably launch, and they'll launch with 4 or 5 pails and they'll sell because down the street or something, someone else is doing exactly the same thing. If you're in an area where there's you and one other bit of competition and you've got your following and they like what they like and you do it very well, as you say, you don't want to rock the boat unnecessarily, do you? And suddenly isolate the people that are keeping the lights on, essentially.
I wonder if there's scope to maybe do some more experimental stuff and send that further afield so the local regulars don't have to drink it.
Or are there some regulars who would be interested, do you think, as well? That's the other question.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's kind of the angle that I'm going to be looking at it. And probably the selling point to my dad on being able to do some of them is that we're obviously we focus more on local recently, but with me coming back, I'm looking at the growth of the company and I want to be expanding out. So likes of, as you say, although the locals like what they like, the big cities, they're going to be more interested in the different styles that we can do. So I think that's probably the way that we're going to have to look at it. And as you said, there'll be locals that try it as well and possibly like it, but we'll still have our core range. We're never really going to be away from that, so they'll still have that to drink.
2 questions, I suppose. In terms of the kit, what have you sort of got? Like, how much are you able to brew? How much are you brewing on sort of a weekly, monthly basis? With the brewery tap, what's your footfall like? We talked a little bit about locals and where you are. It's not a hugely busy area by the sounds of it, but it must obviously be doing well enough that the tap is doing pretty well, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, first question, the equipment. Back when we started, we still got a lot of the kit from when we started. Coming from the dairy farm, we actually converted a lot of farming equipment to be able to use in the brew process. So we still have a lot of that, and it's something that we don't look to get away from. Obviously, we want to expand and get bigger, but at the same time, we want to stick to what's worked for us and what's made us that little bit different. So that's been a big thing for us. On terms of how much we do, so our kit is 5 brewers barrels. But most of our all of our tanks are for 5 barrels. And we've got about 10 conditioning tanks and 3 fermentation vessels, so we've got enough that we can be brewing every day and putting the beer out. And then what was the second question?
So the tap room, how does that perform, I guess, in terms of how busy is it on a weekly basis?
And also, how much of your beer goes through the tap room?
Again, this is something that I'm probably trying to work more towards and having a method of tracking more, because we're very old school at the moment. Everything's kind of pen and paper. So I don't even know how much goes through the tap room in terms of beer, but it's something that I'm looking at because I'm trying to get as much information as I can from the entire process, see where we can make it more efficient, see where we can make it better, really, and where we're missing out. So that's something I'm looking at. But in terms of how it tap room's performance, probably likes of Fridays, Saturdays, it's probably the busiest pub in town. I mean, there's not loads of pubs in Castle Douglas, maybe 4 or 5. But with it, especially on a sunny day, there'll be standing room only inside. And then we've got a yard out the front, which again will be standing room only, people getting the sun. Very, very busy. And it's always been that way. It's been a good place where we get all our regulars, like so through the week and everything. We'll get them coming in Fridays and Saturdays as well. But then you get everybody else become kind of a staple in the community that, right, where are we going on Saturday? We'll start at the brewery and then we'll find out where we're going after that. It's really good just to be in there sometimes as well and kind of feel the buzz about it.
And see people drinking your beer in front of your eyes as well. That must be awesome.
Yeah, it's brilliant, especially likes of ones that I've done myself. I'll serve them it and it'll be, I made that one.
So how many days a week is the tap room open?
So it's open Monday to Saturday. We close it on a Sunday, and it's open from 10 o'clock until 6 o'clock.
Wow. I didn't expect that to be the answer. Okay, there's not many tap rooms that are open every day.
We've obviously got the tap room. We do off sales within the tap room as well. But as I said, we do have a lot of regulars that come in. I don't remember us ever opening less. It's kind of the way it's always been. But there's some days you'll sit and think, why are we even open? But it's something we've always done, and it always works out. There's always somebody comes in, and it's then obviously the busy days it's busy.
I completely get this. I always think, and I say it to quite a few people, if you're not open, you can't serve your product to people. Be open as much as you can, because if you're open and people come, they can spend some money with you.
Yeah, exactly. That's something we've always said, especially if we do like local events and stuff like that. And again, they're hit or miss. It could be that you're heaving. It could be you go and you sell 1 pint. Anytime we're asked how it is, it's always the same. It's like, well, if we weren't here, then we'd be making nothing. We might as well be here.
Just going back to what you were saying, sort of with ideas for beers and also sort of wanting to track a bit more of the data of how things are performing and that, which is obviously what goes with your masters. How's that been sort of received? Because obviously it's, I guess, with the generational thing, like everyone that wants to put their own stamp on it, but is it sort of your dad can see where you're coming from with it and you just want the business to succeed the same as he does?
What he's saying is that do you argue over different approaches to the business?
It's different generations, really. There's a lot of ideas I bring to them, and it's like, oh, I'm not sure how that would work. And, but we've done it this way, and I'm like, yeah, but if we do it this way, this can happen, and this can happen. What I've found a lot of the time is if I go and do something first and then come to them and show them, that tends to work a bit better because I can actually show them.
I like that. Yeah.
Exactly.
Just opened. Dave, have you done the same? Have you got the Black Galloway open now as well?
I've opened it and it poured out beautifully in the glass. It looked tremendous. And I've got to say, and I do say this on the podcast quite a lot, traditional style beers aren't necessarily my thing, but just like the lager, this is really, really, really good. Massively impressed with it. What do you think, Dave?
Well, I'm more accepting of traditional bonds than you are. I wouldn't necessarily drink them all that much, but I can appreciate them. That's one of the smoothest porters I've had in a long, long time.
Yes.
That's probably our biggest award winner.
Can see why.
I know it's been Champion Beer of Scotland. I know it was a finalist for Champion Beer of Britain not long ago as well, and it has just been short. In fact, I did the delivery the other day to the beer festival up in Larbert, that it had been shortlisted for Champion Beer of Scotland again. So it's definitely one of our more popular ones.
No, it just shows. You know, we were talking 5 minutes ago about silly sours and potentially hoppy pales and that, but beers like that just sell themselves, and it just shows that you don't need to always reinvent the wheel. When you've got a product like that, you may as well just lean into it as much as you can, add stuff on top. When you've got things like this, you've obviously got a very solid foundation.
And I think consistency is key as well. If you can keep putting out that beer to that quality, and your regulars are getting the quality every time.
That's really, really good. Kudos to the recipe and to your brewer.
I love it when we find these brewers we don't know much about or very little about, and then the beers are tremendous. Like Dave says, you don't need to be making silly sours and 10% triple IPAs, because these really do speak for themselves.
Yeah, I think that's really been it, has been getting them right, and as you say, consistently. And I think that's why we've stuck with that core range, because they do work for us. They're good, and we have them consistently good. I know that our brewer Kush knows all the recipes off by heart, like the back of his hand. He could go and brew whichever one we tell him to. And I mean, obviously we'll use the brew sheet, but he wouldn't even need it because he knows exactly what to do. We've done it the same, and it's kept consistent.
Just actually, would he be interested in doing new things, or is he, because he's done this, is he quite rooted in, I like doing what I do because I know I can nail it? Or is he sort of quite open to trying some different things?
Obviously, because he knows exactly what he's doing, he is very comfortable doing our core range. But I've had a lot of conversations with him, because working down in the brew hall with him for many years, and he's very open to looking at different stuff, even if it is the likes of the different tracking that I'm looking at bringing in or anything like that, or doing different beer styles. It's something he's definitely been very open to.
That's right. So you've actually got two people, yourself and the brewer, who are looking to move to different areas maybe as time goes on.
Yeah, and I mean, it's definitely something that my dad's coming round to.
You'll persuade him eventually.
Oh yeah, we'll get him there. But like we've already been looking at it. We've not announced it on social media or anything yet, but we are going to be doing a 30th anniversary brew. So that's something we've started looking at, and we're looking to see what style we want to do, whether we want to stick with our traditional ales that we do, or whether we want to look at something slightly different. So we've already had conversations on that, and
let's narrow this down. What do you want to do?
I've got a lot of ideas. I'm not 100% sure myself because I can't quite decide. I want to have something that's easy drinking, probably something more session light that you can drink all day. Because I know a lot of my mates that I've spoke to, they enjoy our beer, but that has been a comment that they said, well, either they can't drink it all day or they have a few of them and don't realise how strong they are, and they end up their nights being shortened. But again, that's just one of the ideas that I've got at the moment. I'm looking at what's going to be the best, and as I said, it's trying to find that balance of going too wacky or too traditional, or trying to find that kind of in between.
Sorry, I was just looking at the bottles because they're not that strong, are they?
They're not, but the strongest one we do is 5.5%. The Galway Gold is 5%, but these boys are used to drinking 3% and 3.5%.
That's a really, really interesting point, because like me and Dave were used to drinking, New England IPAs that are 5-6%, double IPAs, but your normal beer drinker, they're not. It's 3.5-4% is their domain, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. They all say to me, they're like, "Oh, it's." Somebody said to me today, "It's so strong though," and I'm like, "It's not. It's 5%." But then when I think about it, the beers, as you say, the beers they're drinking are lower, so they're not used to it.
Even people who drink Stella and beers like that, they used to be 5% over here, and now they're not anymore. They're 4 point something. So 5.5% will seem like it's a big, heavy beer for a lot of people.
Yeah, definitely.
So we've talked a lot about the last 30 years and how everything has changed in 30 years. Where do you want the brewery? It may not be what your dad wants, but where do you want the brewery to be in the next sort of 2, 3, 5 years, or the next 30 years even? How do you see it progressing?
I mean, I've looked at it and really, I want it to be successful, obviously. I want it to be bigger than it is, but again, I don't want it to become too big. You don't want to become, obviously, that kind of corporate where you lose all the qualities that you've got. You've seen it with so many that they try and go that bit bigger and they lose the quality that they have. I want to make it big enough that it's going to be successful, but I don't want to lose our values and our quality that we have. I brought my son into the brewery not long ago, and I saw exactly what my dad meant when he says to me, like, this can be yours if you want it. And then when I saw my son running about, I was like, do you know what? That's what I want. I want to have this so that he has the choice. If he wants it, he can have it.
So the fourth generation is already there, looking around and running around the brewery.
He's already been running around and causing trouble in the brewery.
Love it.
That's brilliant. How old is he?
He's just turned 16 months, so he's a little bit wild at the moment. So I'm actually doing this at my mum and dad's house, because if I had him running about in the background, I wouldn't have got a minute's pace.
No,
this is very familiar territory, isn't it, Dave?
Yeah, I've got a 21-month-old, so
yeah, it's wild times, but I wouldn't change it for anything.
Yeah, 100%. 100%.
It's a few little quick fire questions here for you. What do you most enjoy about working for the brewery? What really gets you going?
I think for me, I've done jobs that I wanted to do and jobs that I didn't want to do. But I think having the kind of family orientated job at the moment, it's made me actually care about what I'm doing, and being able to get up on a Monday morning and not think, I've got to go into work again. That's been the biggest part for me coming back. And I think it's also because it wasn't forced on me. It was like, all right, you're back, cool, let's get you in, let's get you doing this and get you doing that. It was all my decision. I'd come back. I thought I'll help out for a bit until I figure out. And then, as I said, it became, right, this is what I want to do. And it's like, that's been it since then. I've loved it. since that point. It's something I've got a passion for, and being able to work with my family, I mean, there's not much more I could ask for.
What do you least enjoy about working in the business?
Can I answer that with the same thing about working with my family?
We all know what family's like.
Yeah, no, it's one of those. It's obviously it's difficult if there's any issues, but we're never ones to have like big blow ups or anything like that. If we disagree on something, we disagree on it, but we respect each other's point of view, and we know that everything that we're all doing is for the best of the business. None of us are trying to do it for the sake of it. It's all thinking ahead and trying to do what's best for all of us. But yeah, it can definitely be difficult sometimes.
And in the wider beer industry, what annoys you about the industry the most?
That's a tough one because there's different aspects, but I think probably the fact that, well, I mean, the biggest factor for us is I think when we started there was about 19 breweries. And I'm not saying it's not good that there's been a growth of the industry, but going from 19 breweries to, what is it, about 1,000 now, or it's 1,800 in the UK. So it's not that I find it annoying, but it's definitely become a difficulty for us. And I know what my dad's answer to that would be. It would.
Go on, tell us.
He actually asked me to say about it, and I told him I'm not mentioning that because
Do it.
So his thing was, when you have a pint, obviously you want it to be nice and clear. Now we've got all the hazy IPAs and everything now, and that is his biggest bugbear, because he's like, well, if we had cloudy beer, we would get complaints about it. I'm like, yeah, but it's a new style. It's a modern style. We actually have Solway Mist as a wheat beer, which is traditionally cloudy. So we do have a cloudy beer. And I'd said that to him, and he was like, yeah, but that's tradition. I'm like, yeah, but it's the beer style. So that's definitely his biggest bugbear in the industry.
I think your dad might be sort of pleased to know that what's happening actually is the scene, I would say, in craft now is getting to the point where traditional styles are almost getting reinvented slightly, going back to what's always been around and either reinventing it slightly or trying to do a really good version of it. I think there is a way where the two work together now.
Yeah, definitely. I think it kind of had to come as well. There's so many different styles that are out there that we were always going to have to look at going back, because people are just, I mean, they wouldn't run out of ideas, but out of good ideas anyway, that let's go back to the stuff that works and see how we can tweak that a little bit and make it a little bit different.
You know, I think of simple things in Glasgow. Phil there, he does a lot of sort of traditional styles and also modern-y stuff, and that seems to really work. He's done some stuff which I think is traditionally Scottish as well, and it really works. So there is the market for it now.
And it gets out a long way as well, all over the country, doesn't it? Right, now, is there anything else you wanted to say, or your dad wanted to say, that you haven't said?
I don't think so. I think it's just, obviously, if you've not heard of us, look us up. We're also going to be looking at doing a 30th birthday bash at some point. So if anybody's in the area, we're not 100% on the date yet. It is going to be, I think we're between July and August possibly, but we're going to have a look at that. And also yourselves, if you're ever up in the area, drop in and say hi, because I mean, we're always open.
I'm just sat here thinking, July, August, that's sort of summer holiday time. Yeah, I'm thinking a little road trip might be nice.
We've got a caravan site, and I think it's literally 100 yards from the brewery. Lovely part of the world, and that's what we kind of thrive on, is some tourism along with some good locals and good regulars, and jobs are good in. We are just over the border, then you turn off basically at Gretna and keep going along that way. You'll come through Dumfries, and then Cas Douglas is just past that.
It's not even as far as I thought. Okay.
You could almost do that in a day trip, couldn't you?
See, easy.
Look, so if people want to get hold of your beers, do you deliver nationwide as well?
Yeah, we do delivery nationwide. It's all on our website. So we currently deliver here, there and everywhere. So yeah, if people want to get some, head to the website and we'll make sure it's there for you. I know the majority, we don't always guarantee it because the couriers can be a little bit difficult, but most of the time it is next day delivery as well.
I think it's also worth saying as well, like Dave and I have got a couple of your other beers to have, but we've both been very impressed with the two we have had, and you can buy on your website 12-pack and it's £35 before postage. That's a lot of beer for not really all that much money.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you buy on the website, we do have, if you buy 3 cases, it's free shipping. So it's always worth stocking up.
Absolutely. Look, thank you so much for joining us. Like I said at the start, we knew so little about you, and I wish we'd have found you years ago, because the beers are so good. It's been a real revelation. Scott, thank you so much for chatting to us.
No problem at all. Thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Regular listeners will know that music means it's tried and tested time. What have we been enjoying drinking? Dave, what have you enjoyed since the last episode?
Well, since the last episode, I finally got my illnesses under control. I was diagnosed with having a sinus and a chest infection, which probably explained why hoppy beers had started tasting a bit funny, and also why I just wasn't drinking very much. This is April, and it was sort of February time when it started, so it's been a long time coming to get back on track and feel like I'm really enjoying my beers again. And I've started to get back in there. 2 things before I get to my actual one. Last weekend I went out for some very middle-aged clubbing in London. When I say middle-aged, it was between 6 o'clock and 9 o'clock. And then I came home. And it was great. It was really, really good. We had a beer at the brewery tap in Tap East in Stratford in Westfield. And then we also had some beers at a pizza and craft beer place in Camden, right near the venue where we went to, which was Coco. I think I had 3 beers, and I went to check them all in. I'd had all of them from various times from 2020 all the way to 2022, and it just goes to show how many beers I've had and how they keep coming back around. That was quite entertaining, but I kept thinking I was possibly having something different. I'd just had it years ago and forgotten about it.
Did they taste the same as years ago, or better, or worse?
Interestingly, I would have given everything I had. So there was one from Tap East, because they brew on site, and I would have given that same rating. I wasn't that wild about that. There was a Verdant, which I would have given the same rating, because it was one of their, obviously it was one that had been around a few years, and that was still very onion. And then the beer that would have improved the most was by Flock. It was a pale called Whisper. And when I had it before, I liked it. When I had it this time, I liked it a bit more. Not enough to make it a worldie, but it was better. So that was probably the most interesting bit of that. But the beer that I enjoyed the most, although I couldn't finish it, just because it was potent, and it goes back to that discussion about what we've had with 440 cans and whatnot, was the day after I went out.
Look at you, all these going out. What's going on? I can tell you're feeling better.
Well, no, it was the day after. No, I had this at home. So
yeah, I thought you'd gone out both days of a weekend. Then what's going on?
No, my God, come on, let's not get carried away here. But a few years ago, we had Wander Beyond on the podcast, and Wander Beyond very kindly sent us both some really good boxes. There was some stuff at 2021 vintage when they sent it, and it was stouts, big stuff that could sit and be consumed years later. And that's exactly what I've done. I've kept hold of these beers, and I had Imperial Great Rift, which is a milk stout. It's 13.5%. And as I say, I got through about 2/3 of a can and I couldn't do any more, mainly because I was quite tired. But it had aged really, really well. Obviously, I can't compare it to what it was like when it was first done because I didn't have it then, but it was very good. It had lost all the sort of milkiness, so it did just taste a bit more like an Imperial, but it wasn't very adjuncty or anything like that. It was just a really good, big stout. I don't know that I can add much more to it than that, but it was just, you could just tell it really benefited from sitting a few years and just maturing. Yeah, that was my beer. You're probably going to struggle to get hold of it now, but it was the best beer I've had since we last got together, and that's Imperial Great Rift by Wander Beyond.
I am going to Sussex for my beer, and it's from Missing Link and Abyss Brewing, and it's called Missing in the Abyss. And I saw this had been released. It's an 8% double IPA, and I thought, I've got to get that. And I noticed it was on draft at the Dark Horse in Moseley in Birmingham, which isn't too far from me. Headed over there one Sunday afternoon. This was dripping in hops. This was just dripping. You could smell it as you put it down on the table, but it tasted wonderful. Everything coming together just right. There was Nelson Sauvin, Nectaron, Superdelic, Citra, those big, juicy hops, and didn't smell like a PE changing room, and it wasn't overpowering, but it was just All the fruit was there. It was really lovely and very drinkable. And so much so, we only went for a drink, but we ordered a Sunday lunch to go with it as well. And had a very nice couple of hours just sitting there in the pub. Excellent. And honourable mention also goes to one of my local breweries, Nothing Bound, for one of their recent beers, Flock, which I've had in the tap room. And it was on draft at Beer X in Liverpool recently. And I had great pleasure of sort of pointing a few people towards it and saying, you've got to try this from one of my local breweries. And they all loved it. So yeah, Nothing Bound, doing great stuff.
Daftaboutcraft, powered by Craft Brew Festival.
I do apologise again for this. That is a theme tune from Points of View as we present to you Pints of View. Do you remember that version, Dave?
I don't. I like how we're doing different versions. The one last time I remember, I have no... How old is that one?
I think that was early 90s.
Yeah, that would track why I wouldn't know it, but that could have been like some off-brand Doctor Who or something.
Yeah, it's weird, isn't it? But yeah. So yes, Pints of View is here again as we get some beers from a well-known brewery, test them out, and then try to find an equivalent that is hopefully better from a smaller brewery.
Yeah. So in the spotlight this time, Hebden Bridge's finest, Vocation.
Yeah, Life and Death is the one I always think of when I think of Vocation. I remember buying that, loads of it. Life and Death, Heart and Soul, and love them. They got me into craft beer. Then we drank a few of them in lockdown, a few of their sort of sickly stouts. They were sickly stouts, actually.
It was so sweet.
And we sort of got turned off them and haven't really gone back to them at all. Nothing really drags us in anymore, does it?
No, so I remember the one that stood out to me was when it was the first wave of craft breweries going into the big supermarkets, and Vocation did it, and Love and Hate. And it was like, hang on a minute, you can get practically, well, this is a dipper because Love and Hate weighs in at 7.2%. Which is what it's always been, so they haven't reduced it. And I thought, this is incredible. A 7.2% beer now on the shelves of a major supermarket. And I remember even at the time, I had it the first time and it was brilliant. I did have a couple of others and there was a big fluctuation in quality. Yeah. And that didn't put me off necessarily. And like you say, we then got to the start of the podcast. Vocation did feature because they were pushing out no end of stouts, it felt like. And we did do some for the podcast in Highcore Tribe, and they came in on the too sweet end. And then they did their chocolate bar inspired beers. I remember those being very popular amongst people for a while. And by then you and I were both a bit like, I can take or leave those. And that would be best part of 5 years ago. And I couldn't really tell you in that time if I've had any Vocation.
I've had the odd can of Naughty and Nice, which I like the original version. Now they've done a Tiny Rebel on it and done lots of different versions of it, which is always a bit lazy and annoying for us, the way we view it. But the original was nice. But yeah, they've slipped off our radar. Maybe we're going to have a beer from them now and we're going to love it and we're going to be all over them again.
Well, ironically, Katie, my wife, went to the supermarket today, and she is very good in the fact that she'll always just pick beers off the shelves for me. I wouldn't do it myself that much now from a supermarket, if at all, unless it's maybe sort of, I don't mind some of the European lagers, as in your Paulaner and things like that, which you can get at a good price and bits and bobs like that. And she picked up a Vocation. I very nearly went for it because it's one I've not had before, which is Incognito. But the beer that I got was the beer that got me in, and I want to see how it's aged, and that's Love and Hate.
Well, I got two. I say I. No, I didn't. My wife also got me two beers from Vocation, and they were Incognito and Love and Hate. So we've got the same two beers. Now, I have a bit of a story to tell. I made a bit of a faux pas about 24 hours ago and mistakenly drank my can of Love and Hate.
Well, I'll be fascinated to know what you make of it.
So the question is do I just talk about my experience from 24 hours ago and open another can of something different, or do I go with the Incognito? What do you think?
Well, I think you can feed into what my thoughts are on Love and Hate as it's fresh in your memory, and then just see how Incognito goes down as well.
I know what my thoughts are. Let's see what yours are. You're drinking it now.
Yeah, so I've opened it up. The first thing is, the most encouraging thing, because I'm still a bit scarred by that Tiny Rebel, is it smells like beer, which is a good start, rather than smelling of synthetic nonsense.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. There was very little synthetics going on. Although I did find it sweeter than I remember.
I would actually, I don't find it sweet at all.
Okay.
I spoke about the variance in this beer previously. Now, the can just says hoppy, juicy, tropical, and that's what I remember it as. I remember it being proper, like, very dipper of its time. It was quite sticky, wasn't it? And it was pretty thick, and it was quite sweet. This feels thinner.
Okay.
And I'm struggling to really pick many flavours out of it.
The hops involved here are Citra BBC, Galaxy, and Citra Cryo. So it did smell
So
quite
it's not
fruity.
really. So it's not really original Love and Hate, then, is it? Because those hops weren't around when the beer was. Well, Galaxy was, but those varieties of Citra weren't around when it was originally created.
That is true, actually. Yeah, that's a really good point. Citra Cryo has come in the last few years, hasn't it? The Cryo hops.
I don't hate it, but I'm struggling to put it down as to actually what it is as a beer.
It doesn't have that pillowy fluffiness of a New England IPA, does it? That's the thing.
No, I don't really know what it's doing very well. It's not being undrinkable, which is a plus. I'm struggling to be in love with it, though. It's just a bit of it's mediocre, I think.
Do you think it tastes like 7.2%?
No.
I'm not saying it isn't. It obviously is, but the alcohol is not oozing out of every pore, is it?
Which it used to. I feel like with this, that the hops, this is something we've talked about before, but the hops have been used in pretty sparing quantities.
You wouldn't pick Galaxy out of that.
I'm struggling to really pick it. Yeah, there's no dankness, and Galaxy isn't always dank, as we know. It can be really.
You know it though when it's there, don't you?
You do, and yeah, it just doesn't really taste of anything discernible. Like, it's not unpalatable. Like, it's not dishwater. I don't hate it. Do I want to keep drinking it? Not really. When I'm looking at my other beer that I'm going to try.
Well, let me crack open. Well, I have just cracked open this can of Incognito, which is a double IPA at 7.6%. I've got a slight little technical issue to start with in that double IPAs, shouldn't they be 8%?
That's slipping in a little bit more now. I'm seeing a few more sevens passing themselves off as dippers. I don't know. They're sort of almost their own ground between a 6 and a 6.5, and anything up to a 7 I think of as, if it's there, it's a strong pale, and 8 is a dipper. Anything in the 7 bracket sort of is its own tier.
Yeah, I think I'm with you. I was looking in the fridge for something to have in comparison to this, and I did find an 8% beer, but that was labelled up as a triple IPA at 8%.
Oh, no.
Anyway,
unless it's a Belgian triple, but anyway. While you just drink that, the thing I would say I've got the most out of that now is sort of a weird soapy nose and taste.
Funny you should say the word soap. I've just had a mouthful of this, and soap. You know, you probably didn't get this, but when I was a kid, if I ever bad-mouthed,
You actually had your mouth washed out with soap?
I did, yes.
Wow.
I must have been a horrible child. This would be child abuse these days. I remember
Practically capital punishment, mate.
I remember my grandma putting soap in my mouth, but also putting a soap-covered dishcloth in my mouth. That's hardcore, isn't it?
There's a bit. You wouldn't be able to get away with that now.
No, they'd be straight on the child line, wouldn't you? I mean, that was about 40 years ago, but it was obviously quite soapy, and so is this Incognito. The colour isn't impressing me that much either.
No.
It's like it's not a juice bomb yellow, but it just looks a bit grubby in the glass.
It looks murky.
This has got Cascade, Centennial, Chinook, and Galaxy. Again, I couldn't pick the Galaxy out of this. And
So then so on nose, it should just be really bitter. Like, there's no fruit in that.
No, but the weird thing is the nose is kind of perfumey and soapy, and to taste, it's quite sweet. It doesn't all marry up.
That's some weird sorcery to get that out of those hops, and not necessarily in a good way.
It almost tastes like somebody's sort of put some spoons of sugar into my glass. I mean, it's not sickly sweet, don't get me wrong, but there's a sweetness there which I wouldn't have expected.
I'd say so far, we're not at the point of sink pouring it, which is what happened to Club Tropica, but we're not impressed.
I found a can of Club Tropica lurking in the fridge earlier. I'm going to have to put that in the bin, I think.
I was going to say, did you have a blocked drain nearby or anything that needed attending?
After we'd had that Club Tropica on the last episode, I gave a can to Lisa and I said, Dad, try this and see what you think. She loved Tiny Rebel back in the day. We've been to the tap room, we've bought the merch, we've drunk in there, we've eaten in there. She loved them. I gave her this and she was like aghast. What is this?
Well, that's exactly what we had as an experience, wasn't it? Just not what it was at all. But anyway.
I think we're a little bit underwhelmed again.
Yeah.
There is a point to be made here in that Vocation were one of the breweries that got us into craft beer in the first place. Our tastes during that time from then until now have changed immensely.
When you're putting out beers which you say are, in my case, a 7.2% New England IPA. Now, my taste may have changed, but I know what a 7.2% New England IPA should taste like. It ain't that. The same as what a double IPA tastes like, and it doesn't sound like Incognito is that. And it's just there's sort of weird alchemy going on, it seems like, which, without trying to point fingers and whatnot, is probably because there is an awful lot of beer that needs to be put out onto these shelves, and if you do the brewing process as you would normally it's probably going to take too long. And I just feels like not corners are being cut, that's not unfair, but there's ways and means to get to the end without doing it the way that it used to be done.
Yeah, that's a fair point. I mean, it'd be interesting to see the stats, from when they first went into supermarkets until now, how much more they now sell in supermarkets.
Do you even think of Vocation as a craft brewery? I think of them as a supermarket brewery, because when do you see any of their cans in a bottle shop or on tap or anything?
Where did we go to get the cans from? Supermarkets.
Exactly. And I wouldn't have even embarrassed myself going into a bottle shop and said, have you got any Vocation? Because I know what the answer would have been.
Yeah, that's a really good point, actually. You don't tend to see them in bottle shops. So to all intents and purposes, they are a supermarket brewery.
Yeah. Which is a shame, but I think the point of this was it's not, as we've said each time we've done this so far, because all the big hitters we've focused each time haven't, probably so far, Northern Monk have more or less come out with their reputation intact, I would say. Tiny Rebel and now Vocation, not so much. But the point is to not bag on these breweries and be like, oh, look what they used to be and now they're not and it's rubbish. Oh, I hate it. No, it's disappointing for sure. But the point is, you could go get this beer, and I wouldn't know. Do you know what yours cost? But because of the strength of them, they wouldn't have been £3 anymore, would they? They'd be more $4.25, I'm guessing.
Yeah, but I think you can get like 4 cans for the price of 3 from most of the supermarkets.
Okay. On a per can basis, that beer's probably £4 minimum, isn't it? Because of the strength of it for both of ours. And I think the point we're trying to make is, if you've got £4 in your pocket to go buy that beer, yes, it's convenient to go to your supermarket, but you might have a brewery on your doorstep doing something exactly the same for maybe, in this case, because it's a stronger beer, a £5 a can or £5.50. And I get that if you start buying 4 or 5 of those, that adds up to another £5, and it is more money, but you probably get a far superior product for it.
If you buy an equivalent beer from a smaller brewery, what you're probably getting is a more crafted beer. We're in this for that crafted beer that has been made lovingly, in a lot of cases, small batch, which breweries like Vocation, then that's not them anymore. Once upon a time, yeah, but that's not what they do now.
And this is the thing, like that price of that can now sounds appealing for £4 or £4.25, but the profit margin on that can now will be immense for Vocation. There's no way around that.
It does depend how much supermarkets are screwing them as well, though.
They probably are getting done a bit, but if they were getting done that badly, they wouldn't keep doing it, I would counter with. Whereas today, I went into my backyard of Ipswich to Briarbank, and I know exactly where that beer has been brewed because you can see it from the road. Once you go to Briarbank, you can see the tanks from the one-way system. Spoke to Rob, who's been on before, took away some cans, and the beer that I wanted to compare Vocation to Briarbank because I know Rob does 2 really good pales. One is hop to it, which I nearly did, and the other one is mango, which, as the name suggests, is a mango-based pale, New England pale, 5%, and it is brewed with mango puree. So yes, the mango puree is in there as the adjunct to make it that bit sweeter, but there's no lactose or anything like that.
Your Briarbank New England there, how does that taste? Does that taste synthetically sweet? I don't think so.
No, it tastes of mango. Even still with mango puree, because it's not going to be doctored chemical puree, it still tastes slightly green because not all mango is super sweet. There is always that like greeny, fruity tinge to it, not just that sweet, lovely taste to it. And this is great. Like, I could have done hop to it, which is a bit more of a hoppy pale, absolutely lethal on tap at 6.2%. I can vouch for, but this is 5%.
It's worth saying that we're not comparing hops. We're not comparing ABV. What we're doing is comparing styles from a big brewery to a smaller brewery. So they're both New England's, the Vocation one, and what you've got there is in New England, and the one that I've got, which will open in a minute, is also in New England. But we're just seeing how they compare.
Yeah, and to go back to the costings, I came away with 5 cans from Rob today. I had this beer, I had Hop to It, Suffolk Haze, which is another pale, a really good pale. That's a really, really good beer. And also, he, a couple of years back, did a Imperial Grounds for Divorce, and he did version 1, and I didn't manage to try it. And version 2 is coming to the end of its life, only because, and Rob won't mind me saying, I don't think, only because he mistakenly put on the expiry date of the cans 2025, as in the 1st of, I think it was January 2025, when of course Imperials last for goodness knows how long. So he's had to be running them off at a bit of a discount because they're incorrectly labelled. And he was saying to me today that he's thinking about what to do for version 3. So I bought 2 cans of that. So that's an Imperial as well, because I said to him at the time, just to go back to tried and tested, I wanted to have one now, and I'm going to sit on one for a bit and try it again in a while. And those 5 cans, and there was no discount applied, just because I know Rob, etc.
It's worth saying that a lot of the time, we will go to breweries, we will have beers, we know the people, but we like to pay for our beers. We're not freeloading off people. We love to pay for our beers and support the little breweries.
100%. In every message we send out to brew, to me, Pete, potential candidates, we always say happy to pay for the beer if required. Like, it's never a problem because we understand what they're doing and we're happy to pay for it. The 5 cans that I came away with cost me 25 quid. Now, the Imperial was, I don't know what the individual pricing was, but it was discounted. So I suspect it would have been closer to 30 if it was at full price. But take those out, and I suspect the pails are probably weighing in at about a £5 a can. And for that, compared to Love and Hate, it's not even close.
And you're paying maybe 20% more for the Briar Bank over the Vocation, but the quality, is it 20% better or more than 20% better?
It's so much more than 20% better. And the other thing is as well, just going back to the margins, like I say, you can see from the road the tanks. You can go meet the person who's gone and brewed this beer for you, because sometimes he'll be working the bar as well. We were talking about what's coming up. They've got some exciting stuff coming up. They've got an Easter Beer Festival. They've also celebrating 12 years of being open and having 12th birthday celebrations in May. So he's got a lot going on, but Rob is doing all of this while brewing the beer. So this is the difference, whereas it's a faceless can on a supermarket shelf, which was done, who knows, Yeah, he was flat out when I saw him, but still in really good spirits. They've got plenty of good stuff on for their Easter Beer Festival. I've been to those festivals before, and they're always really good. They're really well-attended events. And then the 12th birthday, he's looking to re-brew some of their most popular beers over the years. And it's worth saying, I can't stress enough, I keep saying you can see the tanks from the road and everything. It is tightest setup you've ever seen. It's so small. The beer that he can put out of that setup is incredible.
I think we can hear from you talking there about Briar Bank, your passion for a really small brewery. It means so much more, doesn't it, when you're drinking beers from an outlet like that, rather than, like you say, a faceless can off the supermarket shelf. It's kind of meaningless, isn't it?
It is, and it's tough because as I said earlier, I don't want to keep bagging on these breweries who have decided this is their route, because I would say there used to be the argument that these kind of beers could be a good gateway into getting to the Briar Banks of the world and your beer, which you need to open and tell us about, by the way.
I've opened it. We'll get onto it in a minute. You're right, though, because, Vocation was a gateway brewery. Now, I wonder is it still a gateway brewery to craft beer? Is Northern Monk, is Tiny Rebel? I'm not sure.
I think of the 3 so far, I would think maybe Northern Monk would open up a few more doors to you trying some stuff. If I had this beer as someone just getting into craft beer, I don't see where it's going to push me in any direction anymore, because it doesn't really taste of anything, and it wouldn't encourage me necessarily to go find something equivalent and then have to pay more for it if I was sort of at the beginning of a craft beer journey type thing.
What we need to do is find somebody at the start of their craft journey and ask them what they think of it. Maybe we'll look into that. Maybe we can do that. Anyway, the beer I have got was purchased just a couple of weeks ago on the pier at the seaside again in Llandudno, because on that pier There is a little shop run by Conway Brewery, and you can go in there and drink beers and buy beers from there. How awesome is that? On the pier.
That's great. Is it set up so you can sort of look out to sea while you're doing it?
Well, I don't know, because I didn't actually buy it. Somebody bought it for me and gave it to me. I was in Llandudno for Wild Horse's 10th birthday, but I didn't go on the pier. I was actually sat in the car working, so I couldn't go on the pier. But anyway, somebody got me the can and gave it to me, and I was amazed when I found out there was a Conway Brewery shop on the pier. How brilliant is that? But this is a New England IPA. It is 6% ABV, juicy New England IPA, single hop with Simcoe. Lovely colour in the glass, lovely deep yellow.
Yeah, much better.
It's not murky. That is how it should taste.
Mm.
It's soft. It's rounded. It's like a furry blanket covering you over. It's everything it should be.
I think this is part of the thing. Like I sort of said in Brew to Me that when you had your beer and you had a sour and you were really impressed with it, and I sort of said, well, if they can do that well, they can probably do pales well, because pales sort of over the course of us doing the podcast are by proxy the easiest sort of style of beer to brew. You know, is that Vocation beer really a New England IPA anymore, or sort of well brewed or anything? I think that's a big problem with it now. Like when we're sort of going, I can't really taste a hop. I don't really know what the big thing on this is. I'm not sure what. That's bad.
You heard it in our interview with Scott from Solworth. He said, when I asked him where he wants to be in 2, 3, 5, 10 years, he said, bigger, but not so big that they don't care anymore. Not so big that they lose touch with what they wanted when they started the business. And I kind of think maybe that's what's happened with breweries like Vocation. They've got their place in the market. Nobody's denying that, but they've kind of let go of what they started it all for, and the beers are just not quite what they were.
It feels like that. I mean, interestingly, and I think we can probably have a bit of a guess as to how these would taste, but interestingly, I've just gone onto their website and you can get, now I will go to the core stuff, but they do have a barrel age section.
Yeah, I've seen it, yeah.
You know, an Imperial Plum Stout. I'm interested, but, and it's in a red wine barrel, I'm interested, but then I think, I bet that tastes really heavily of sweet plum, and I don't think it will be genuine.
Well, I tell you what, in the interests of giving everybody a fair shot, why don't we do another version of this with their barrel-aged beers?
You know what? I would actually, because there's an Imperial Gooseberry Sour which has been in a Chenin Blanc barrel, which seems interesting. Yeah, all right. I'm game, because the barrel-aged stuff, you know what? It piques my interest in the sense that it seems like it could be well done. And if you're still dedicating some time to your barrel aging, perhaps all hope is not lost. And then in the same breath, they sort of knock themselves down. Special edition beer, right? Incognito is described as a special edition beer. How special is it if it's in the shops of the supermarket, which is available in Stourbridge and also Ipswich? It's not that special, is it?
So Incognito is on there as a 7.6% dipper. And then right next to it, they've got an 8% dipper, smash and grab. They're very close there, aren't they, those two? Yeah, okay. Well, I think what we're saying here is that the beers are fine, but we've found the beers are okay. I'll not shut down a bit. They're okay. They're not offensive in the same way that Tiny Rebels was. That was offensive.
For the sake of fair and balanced, I've just had a swig out of my can, and I can taste a bit of Galaxy.
I think it's fair to say we've enjoyed Briarbank and Conway beers much more than the Vocation beers. That is undisputed. What we're learning more and more is, like you said before, if you want a beer and you want to help a little brewery near to you, you're going to get a much more pleasant experience from your beer, and you'll help a small business as well. Right, so that is just about it for episode 71 of Daftaboutcraft, but fear not, we will be back in 3 weeks' time with an exciting interview stateside with an American craft brewery. Tune into episode 72 to find out more.
Daftaboutcraft, powered by Craft Brew Festival, nationwide beer festivals with a difference. Daftaboutcraft, brought to you with mosaic board print, makers of supreme beer mats. Daftaboutcraft.
Daftaboutcraft, the craft beer podcast.